Congressman, I now want to leap to Section 4, lower energy prices and transition to a clean energy economy. According to the Biden administration, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 made, quote, the single largest investment in climate and energy in American history. How specifically would this agenda implement that investment?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, there's been tremendous progress on the clean energy front. And not only will this over time help secure energy independence, but over time it will also lower prices. Part of that means just implementing some of the investments that were made in the Inflation Reduction Act. We also know, and again, this is an area where we have begun bipartisan conversations with some of our Republican colleagues on permitting reform. The capacity to streamline some of the clean energy infrastructure processes in a way that reduce energy costs, again, with a specific focus on energy transmission and on electrical grid resiliency, I think is just ripe for opportunity. And this is something where it requires a little bit of nuance, which Congress is not always good at, right? We know that there's been proposals from the Republicans that say, hey, we can do permitting reform if we just kind of roll over all environmental laws that protect clean air, clean water, and endangered species. President Biden's not going to sign that. At the same time, we've seen some in my party who've said, all environmental laws were written on stone tablets handed down from God and shall never be adjusted in any way. That's probably not right either, right? There's a way to do this that says, let's have common sense reforms that might, where there's something that takes 10 steps, try to reduce it to 3 or 4 steps that continues to protect clean air, clean water, and endangered species, but might rationalize the process in a way that can streamline it, that can see these investments happen, which is both important from the standpoint of combating the climate crisis, but also when we see these investments come online, it will reduce energy costs, and that's a good thing too.
You did mention that you're beginning to talk to Republicans on this issue. Are they coming on board? Are they coming to the table?
I give a lot of credit to some of the business organizations, groups like the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce have convened some discussions to try to encourage this type of bipartisan dialogue. Again, we're in a period of divided government. So if we're going to see proposals move in Congress, by its nature, it needs to be able to pass the House, which is currently in Republican hands, pass the Senate, which is in Democratic hands, and be signed by a Democratic president. That means neither party's going to get everything it wants. And it particularly means that Democrats and Republicans, if we want to move forward on this, have to be able to talk to each other and listen to each other and work together. And that's really where our coalition is trying to lean in.
Congressman, that's a really interesting point. And in this Congress specifically, how do you see the relationship between Democrats and Republicans right now?
Mixed bag, right? It's a mixed bag. Obviously, you've seen some examples where Democrats and Republicans have been able to come together on an issue here or there. I think there was some hope, candidly, when the debt ceiling agreement was passed. And listen, neither party got everything it wanted to in that agreement, but there was some hope that not only did we avert economic catastrophe by defaulting, but it set the table for moving forward on the appropriations process, where oftentimes the thing that holds up the appropriations process the most is the inability to get agreement on the size of the pie, and then what's the part of the pie that goes to defense and what goes to non-defense. That got agreed to in the debt ceiling agreement. And there was, I think, hope coming out of that perhaps Democrats and Republicans would be able to move forward quickly and on time for a change with the appropriations process. Now, the problem is, and I don't say this in a partisan way, this is just a statement of fact, that agreement lasted about a week until Speaker McCarthy and House Republicans said, no, we're not going to abide by that agreement, and we're going to mark up appropriations bills at a far lower level. I think that's a missed opportunity for sure, but it's also choosing the path of greatest resistance. And so, I think it's really a mixed bag right now. It takes two to tango, and the House majority, I think too often during this Congress has said, we'll rather try to placate the very far right extremist Republicans rather than work across the aisle.